All right, guys, welcome back. We got another pivotal segment here, and it's actually a very special one because the person that I have on the other side of the screen from me actually played a pretty kind of important role in my world here in terms of how I've kind of progressed in the industry. But if you guys don't know, the face on the other end of this is Leonard Armenta, and he's currently the CEO of SINFIT Nutrition and Secret Javas. You've had several different leadership roles, consulting roles, working with a lot of supplement and functional CPG startups, done extremely well for yourself. But we crossed paths at MusclePharm, and I always tell the story when people ask me how did I ever get involved with MusclePharm. I always default to a story that is half true because it's a little bit easier to tell. I always tell people that I got the connection through Jeremy DeLuca, which ended up being the case. But there was actually a few steps before that, and I think blind maybe emailed your guys' contact information, and the person that ended up contacting me back, emailed me back, and then eventually I think we talked on the phone a few times, was you. So I have to thank you, I guess, for bringing me back into the world of sports nutrition and functional CPG, because if it wasn't for you, I'd probably still be looking at tax law or some weird corporate finance for some, Fortune 100 company or something like that. So I guess I should thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, that was it's crazy. That was before we had like full human resource department or anything like that, and I kind of answered all those emails, and I do remember that. And I remember you guys coming in. You had the whole crew came in that one time and sat in my office before you actually moved to Denver. And yeah, I mean those were the days, man. Back, man, those were seems so long ago now. Sometimes it's all such a blur. I can't even remember what was going on. And sometimes when I talk to guys like Chris Nimzik or some of those guys, it's like wow, that was so long ago.
It was. I mean, and you were one of the first employees of MusclePharm, right? And so, like in 2008, maybe you started.
Yep. I was actually the first real. I mean, there was Corey and Brad,
Yeah.
uh, but other than that, it was then they brought me in as a contractor originally just to start doing sales, and it was supposed to be like a 10-hour a week job type thing, and it just got so busy, and we were selling so much product, and I was helping Brad with the rebrand, and because he had those like bright foil labels, and
Hmm.
it just took so much of my time. Finally, he was just like, I need to bring you on full time. And I was still a contractor, but I was full time. And then, we moved and it just got bigger and bigger while he was in, playing in the Arena Football League. And it just kind of consumed my life, really. I mean, my wife and I laugh about it because I think I literally was like 14 to 16 hours a day, just nothing but muscle farm. I mean, you wore all the clothes, you did, you just lived the brand. It was one of the first places I think I ever worked where you actually kind of lived what you were doing.
Yeah, we were all drunk on lime green Kool-Aid. I think it was at that time. It was in a work environment that I think is very hard to replicate. But I think it really drove that early time period. You mentioned like football, and I always think about, how there's like those coaching trees where like one major coach, say like Bill Parcells, like, and then all these people over the years have like been his assistants, and then they have assistants, and it's like this big tree of like all the talent that they ever brought up. I wish they would have those types of trees for some of these like integral brands in the industry, because I feel like if you took all those trees down, there would be like so much of the owners now, or like the very prominent leaders in the spaces, like come from probably a select few brands, and then they just like treat off of that over time.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I always laugh about how originally it was like EAS. You couldn't go to a company without somebody who worked for EAS at the time. I mean, you remember Joe Lewanson and, I mean, those guys all were EAS, but they built their life through EAS. And now you look at, people who worked for Muscle Farm, and, some of them are gone. I mean, some of us, lone warriors are still going. I mean, I remember when you were first starting your consulting and you were in that, little apartment up in downtown, just outside of
Yeah.
downtown Denver, and you were making that move, and my niece had just moved to town, and we went and we were like buying some stuff because you were like, I don't want to take all this stuff with me to Texas, and So I just remember those like times, and you were doing some new things, and you had like Zach was doing some, all the labeling for people, and it's funny because with a lot of people who work in the graphics or in certain parts of MusclePharm, you can always see their influence on other brands. So you can, when I see a brand, and I'm like, oh, dude, somebody there worked at MusclePharm, I can tell. And so it's kind of cool. I mean, it was kind of a legacy for, a while and before it changed. And then, we all left. And of course, now they're not even in Denver anymore, And so actually, Joe Lewanson works part-time for me at
Oh,
SINFIT. So he handles all my influencers and works on some of our athlete stuff and also does some sales for us and things like that. He has his own business that he does full-time with him and his wife, but he works part-time with me because he wants to stay in the industry. And him and I just have stayed great friends since I brought him on in 2009 at MusclePharm. I started July of 2008 at MusclePharm. And when I brought Joe in, and then Joe and I just stayed really great friends. And so we still, I think you're one of the few guys that I still talk to also from those days. I don't talk to a lot of them that often. And actually, Brad and I connected the other not too long ago, and because he lives down the street from me basically, and he was like, "Dude, we should do lunch." He's coaching football and stuff now, and he's like, "We should do lunch sometime and talk about some other stuff." So it's kind of funny how it all kind of comes full circle. But yeah, there's only a couple people that I still talk to from those days.
yeah. Industry it's funny because it's very big in an aggregate sense, but when you think about it from just the names, it's like you end up in the same circles over and over again. And I think it's also because if people do really good work or you get a level of trust with them, you seem to always kind of bring them in and just say like, hey, I need help for this or whatever. That's probably why it becomes a small industry, because only the strong end up surviving and kind of rising to the top. But I do want to talk about your new role. And it actually is, I guess, technically what we were just talking about with some of these coaching trees, came from one of those prominent brands started by Scott James, which was one of the co-founders of BSN. And he, after I think his non-compete had been up, he started what it was called Sinister Labs, but now it's SINFIT Nutrition. So I want to talk a little bit around your current role that you have now. I think this is a pretty new role, and then you guys just acquired them, I think, just this summer, correct?
Yeah, it was in June, middle of June. We acquired them. We're actually part of a holding company called GenTech Holdings, and so we acquired SINFIT Nutrition. Me and Scott, actually, believe it or not, is we had been working on this acquisition for about a year and a half. It was pricing and his business, because he's got Wicked Cuts, which is just that protein jerky is just going crazy, and his vitamin company is going crazy, and SINFIT I always said was kind of his baby that I always told him, that's your baby that you ignore, and he's like, yeah, it really is. I mean, it really is. And so finally, after through COVID and, them having to restructure a lot of things, he was just like, look, this is what I want to do. Can you guys acquire? Do you guys want to acquire it? Me and my partner said, yep, we'll definitely acquire it, which was exciting for me because I love the brand. I'd been using the products for over a year already anyways. So I really loved the product. I believed in the line. And so, yeah, so we took it over. And the deal I have with the CEO of our holding company is that anything we acquire, I become the CEO of the subsidiary. For the most part, except for one of our other brands, we left their CEO in place because their business is doing so great. We just left him in place. But yeah, being the CEO of SINFIT has been definitely great, but it's definitely, like you said, I mean, it started Sinister Labs, and it was the world's first hardcore functional food. They had, skeletons and skulls, and like their mascot was Benny the skeleton. So it's funny because they have an email, it's called Benny, and so I get emails where people are like, "Hey Benny," and they're asking me a question. And so it's kind of funny that they started that way, but the transition to the SINFIT was the fact that international, and even in GNC, they noticed that like 80% of the people buying it were men, because the women would pick it up interested, but then they would see the skulls and they would see the world's first hardcore functional food, and they were just kind of like, oh, well, I can't take this then. So they stopped taking it. At that point, that's when SINFIT decided to do the full rebrand. And then that's right around the time I came in and said, hey, it started off, we were talking like maybe I'd come in and start just running the company for them. And then it turned into, hey, do you want to acquire the business from us? And, it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out. I think this might have been early, maybe 2017, I think, maybe when it came out. And I initially took notice of it because it was different. Not to say that I liked it or whatever. I have a different eye for brands, so I tend to like things that are more clean and mainstream and got a certain look to it just because of the type of business I do. But I do appreciate when things look different, so especially the unique hook on some of the products with like being caffeinated peanut butter, protein peanut butter, and then how I guess the brand started to build out the product basket or just ecosystem that seemed to work out pretty well. Because if you think about a lot of us, we have like protein pancakes. You make it, you got the mix, you need the sugar-free syrups, maybe you put your peanut butter on there, whatever. So like it ended up, all of them were complementary to each other. And I liked that aspect of it. I know also was like cookies and there was bars. And I remember when those protein bars first came out, I grabbed a few of them from a local retailer and they were amazing. I was like, these are crazy. These are so good. Some of the flavors just seemed like they kind of went back to a bar that was like around maybe 10 or 15 years ago. These like Titan bars or like these bars that were like candy bars that had some protein in them. But the macros of the SINFIT bar was much better, but they were able to pack a lot more flavor into it, which is, I guess, owed to a lot of like the flavor systems and just the capabilities the industry has kind of come up with over time and being able to work with proteins a lot better and flavor them the right way. But I always remember that coming out and initially thinking like, man, this is kind of funny because I think a lot of times there's a lot of brands and sports nutrition or functional CPG that come out and you're like, it's kind of cringy, but it wasn't cringy. It was put together well. It was just different. And after I realized it was, Scott James behind or whatever, it's like, okay, there's a lot of thought behind this. Maybe it's not directly put towards me as a customer, but I appreciated the difference in way of the approach. But you have to evolve over time because, as you said, it kind of pigeonholes you into certain customer demographics or profiles, and you can't live alone in that really like hardcore world. That's a day by day that becomes devalued. Less people are becoming that. It's more mainstream, active nutrition, a lot of females coming into the space, a lot of people that don't have the bodybuilding background or just that kind of culture into why they're buying the products. It's more just, I'm trying to live a healthier lifestyle. I'm trying to be in shape so I can run around with my kids and still feel good after that, or work extra hours or whatever it is. And it's been a good evolution, at least that I've seen with, from Sinister Labs over to SINFIT Nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%, which is why we kind of changed over the bars. Our new bars are now 20 grams versus 30 grams. We've had some customer, lash back a little bit saying, hey, where's the 30 gram? We love the 30 gram. But one of the things we noticed is, honestly, even for myself, I would grab one of the Sinister Lab 30-gram bars. It was 2 meals for me, because it was big and it was heavy. And the new ones are more, a good size, 20 grams. They eat really well. They're not really hard on you. We've had anybody complain about, any gut discomfort or anything like that. So, and then we did the same with the cookies, because to me, the cookies were kind of the bar in a cookie shape.
Yeah.
But just 20 grams of protein versus, 30. So our new cookies are going to be like a fresh bake style cookie, super moist in the middle. It's actually going to be 2 cookies instead of 1. So it's going to be 2 10-gram cookies in one package, which will differentiate ourselves a little bit, because a lot of people have like either one big like 16-gram cookie, or they'll have like one small 5 or 10-gram cookie in a package. So we wanted to keep the 20 grams so that people still got that value of the 20 grams, but they'll now be able to split it up into 2 cookies, still 10 per pack. The spreads, we're moving more to a creamier. Our old spreads were a little rough. You couldn't really spread them on a bread. It was kind of hard to spread them on a bread. The new ones are really creamy, like a creamy peanut butter. So those ones are there. We brought out the peanut powders. We rebranded those as well. So we took the skeletons off. We still left the Angry Mills name on them. because that's the play on the peanut mill, right? So we changed it. It's a little more of a cleaner look. Still gives it a little bit of a hardcore look because they're caffeinated peanut powders, but it looks nice to where people are really giving it good attention. So we've got a bunch of different things that we're working on there. We actually have protein waffles getting ready to come out. So similar to the pancakes that we have, except for better, more fats. So it'll be better fats for your body, but also it does have a. I've cooked the pancakes in a waffle maker. They taste great, but the waffles taste like a pure like Belgian waffle. And then we're also releasing a blueberry pancake with real dried blueberries in there. So we've got those. Those are all running next week. So we're really excited about that because it'll come into the warehouse, and we've already got a bunch of purchase orders ready for all of those to go. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm already kind of seeing people put the two cookies together with some of the peanut butter and putting that all over social media. I already see that kind of happening. Make your own, kind of sandwich cookies,
Yeah.
which eventually I'm sure you guys will just make it for them. So they don't have to do it themselves. But initially, because of the way that it started, hardcore and all that, I think a lot of the distribution was traditional supplement stores and specialty retail. Has that changed over time now with the softening of the brand?
Because of Scott's relationship with Giant Eagle, we're already in there. We're talking about revamping that relationship again. One of the things that they had is they used to struggle a little bit with inventory, right? Because they had so many brands going on at once, keeping all that inventory together was a little tough. So we're kind of retalking there. We now have big interest from like Hy-Vee is really interested in the product now. We're in serious discussions with them. And we are seeing more of the grocery chains. We're, of course, in Colorado, so we have Natural Grocers right here. They're waiting for the new cookies to get in our warehouse so that they can actually get the samples and try them out and make sure it fits their specs. And then if it does, they're wanting to work with us as well. So yeah, we're definitely seeing that. Where we're seeing the biggest growth though is internationally. Now that we've got the new brand, it just in the Middle East, we just closed Saveco, which is in Pakistan. They've got 300, I think, or 400 grocery stores. Our international, one of our Middle East distributors just, he tripled his order, what he did last year in Sinister Labs, just in one order. Singapore, we've got Singapore coming on board. We've just got a lot of, internationally is where we're really seeing a big push right now because of that softer look. And some people actually even saying, well, the SINFIT looks a little too hardcore. Can you guys change the logo a little bit? And I'm like, no, I think we're good with where it is. We want it to look a little like where people don't feel like they're buying too like of a frou-frou type product, but they know they're getting a good product that's good for them, but it's bold, because they're like, well, you should just make a capital S and the rest should be all like lowercase letters. And I'm like, it just doesn't look right that way. I just can't have myself do that. So
Yeah, everybody has opinions about what you should do. So it's always going to be that way. But I always tell entrepreneurs that if somebody is taking the time to tell you what their thoughts are, they tend to be one of those like brand loyalists or advocates where like they care enough to share their opinion, even if it's something that you are not going to take any of their advice. At least it's better than the people that just don't say anything, because those are the toughest people to service, because you don't know, did they like it? Did they not like it? How can I improve this? How can I, those people, they buy it, they don't like it, they never say anything, and they never come back. And you have no way of fixing things or trying to create a better relationship with them. Outside of some of the stuff with SINFIT, is there anything else that you guys are working on from kind of like a holding company level?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll start off a little bit on the distribution channel. Yeah, we are definitely increasing that, getting some new people in. We're getting some more food distributors who are interested in us as well, not just, our biggest obviously is Europa, who we work with, and they're really putting a big push behind us. So we're excited about that. But we do have that. Now we have our secret Javas line under our holding company, which is our coffee. We buy beans from this really great Brazilian coffee farm, and we bring them in. We have a place that roasts them for us, grinds them for us, and then we have that coffee. So that started off as like, before I was around, it was a subscription coffee box or it was kind of called Secret Javas because you never, it was kind of like he bought different beans and different roasts every time, and you never know what you got to get. So it's kind of like a secret type thing. We kind of changed that and decided that we just really like the Secret Java's name anyways because it just sounds really nice. So we have that's gonna we have the regular coffee. Now we're coming out with some flavored instant coffees that have like MCT in them and some of the things like that that'll really carry the flavor. It's gonna have 4 or 5 flavors of that. And then we're also developing we've just finished the development on a protein coffee. So it'll have 20 grams of protein in it. And it'll actually have each scoop or each serving will have 2 shots of espresso. So it tastes still like coffee, but it has the protein in it. So that's a really big push for us as well. And then we also just acquired a company called Hakuna Supply, which is a CBD company, and it's CBD supply, but also they make their own CBD coffee, CBD tea. They have these drink drops, which are really great. It's like you put the little drops in your water bottle. So they have those, but they have CBD in them. So that's really good flavor with the CBD. You don't really taste the CBD like a lot of things. And so we acquired them I think it was probably 3 to 4 weeks ago. And that's the company we left the CEO in because they've been doing so well. They're based out of California. So they're doing really well. And we actually are working on a couple other acquisitions that we can't really talk about, but they'll be in the nutritional, functional space that will, I think, really take our brand to the next level. And we have some other things that we're developing as well on our own brands also.
It seems like you guys are seeing growth coming from acquisitions and really trying to kind of highlight maybe undervalued assets, utilize some of the market dynamics to grow. But are you guys also looking at some internal brand development and saying, hey, there's some cool synergies and things that we have with all these brands. We can kind of create our own thing that is either complementary or maybe just provide some extra scale that will help all the brands in conjunction?
Yeah, we are definitely doing that. We do actually have a brand that we're working on right now that is a CBD brand, and it's going to be different from Hakuna. So it's got all different products, and it's got a actually patented CBD delivery system. We're working with another publicly traded company on their systems and their patent to use it into our products. Which, if it works well, we actually may bring that delivery system, which nobody else has in the supplement industry. We may bring it into supplements. What they're noticing is they have clinicals showing that their delivery system actually will help the delivery of the CBD up to, I think it's like 85% on where I guess a lot of the CBD just isn't as you just don't get, like, people will say, okay, you got to take 30 milligrams per serving, but it's because you're getting 10 to 15 milligrams actually digested in your system and it's actually working. So this is actually where they're like, hey, we put 15 in or we put 30 in something with our delivery system. You're actually getting, 28% of that or 88% or 98% of that into your system. So if it works really well there, we've got some stuff that we're testing on some supplements to see if maybe it will work in the supplement industry as well. So yeah, there's a lot of definitely internal brand stuff that we're looking at doing. But a lot of our business is kind of built around building SINFIT, building Secret Javas, and then acquisitions of new companies. Because I like the idea of just bringing in companies that are already doing well, but maybe they struggle because they don't have the financing or funding to go to that next level. Where we can come in, I can take over as the CEO. We move the CEO of the company down to president if he's doing a good job. He or she's doing a great job. Move them down to president, and we basically just say, hey, run your business the way you do it, but we're going to provide the funding that you need to take that to the next level. So those are the types of things that really our focus is.
Interesting strategy, because a lot of times in this space, it comes down to, I think, a lot of like process procedural stuff where people don't have those things in place. So there's just a lot of leakage that happens across the business. And then the other side is usually the capitalization. There's just not a lot of that funding that happens at a small level or ahead of revenue. Like in other industries, you tend to have to show you could sell X or whatever, and you're looking at funding, and if you do, it's kind of the bad funding, I guess, the stuff you don't want to take.
Right.
It's not like the tech industry where like they're going to fund way ahead of your user base just because they are trying to work on acquisition. You have a few other kind of things I think that are issues in there, but I think if you have the right kind of system in play and you can plug them in or bolt them on, and then you can get a lot of those efficiencies, it sets up pretty well as long as you can continuously execute on kind of some of those broader portfolio goals.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great thing is like my partner, he's been, he's ran his own public company for the last 20 years. He's bought and sold many companies. His first company he ever went public with was a gaming company. And so over in the UK. So he started with that and he's just slowly transitioned into some other things. And then when him and I met, he just kind of fell in love with this space after learning about it and talking to me about it. And he was like, man, I really could see this. He has a son and a daughter who play sports, and he's just like, yeah, they never eat right. They never do this. And so we started talking about it, and he just got excited. And we look at things a little different. So it's funny because when we're talking to these acquisitions, they're like, well, and everybody's trying to say, well, our numbers aren't going to look as good because of this or because of that. And I'm like, look, just send me your stuff. We look at it a little differently. We're not technically looking at that you're doing $8 million a year in sales. We don't care about that. If you're doing 500 grand in sales and you've got a nice business that if we just come in and implement our processes into your system and you have the right people in place, or if you don't, we'll bring the people to put them in place for you and we'll build it from there. You'll still own part of the company. And, because we always allow them to be, some of them just want, like, for instance, SINFIT, they just wanted to sell outright. So they didn't want any part of it. But other companies we've talked to, some of the guys are like, well, I'd still like to be like 10%, because if you build it and sell it, I'd like to have, something since I built it from scratch or whatever. And we just do a lot of different creative things with these acquisitions that allow us to acquire business that maybe people are like, wow, I can't believe you were able to do that. But we really just take the processes from our knowledge from the past and put it into their businesses now. And we see that growth. And that was kind of with Hakuna. We had dealt with them in the past, and so they took on some of the things we were doing, and their sales started kicking back up after COVID and all that, where they hit a huge downfall. Now they're picking back up. Things are really starting to hop for them. They're doing a lot of new things. The CEO, Elon Freeman over there is he's a sponge. He just sponges like, hey, we're like, you should try this. Let me try it. And he's out there trying to find different ways to do it. So those are the type of businesses that we really want to do. And we really like the fact that if we can find a business too, that, that maybe like when we got Hakuna, it was kind of going down. And so to get it and then bring it back up is kind of the exciting part of it all,
Always enjoy the challenges. It's always, I guess, more rewarding when you can create those things. Your confidence starts to build a lot more than, just jumping on a fast moving train. And you're like, I was a person that helped this, but it's a little bit different when something is going down and, you're that key influencer in there that brings it back up. You can really build a lot of confidence that a lot of those things in market work, be it strategies or tactics, or just maybe even coaching in your case with the current CEO. Before I let you go, I do have kind of like a forward-looking question for you. Where do you see the company at as a whole, like 5 years from now? Is that something you look out that far too? Or is that just, hey, we're going to take it day by day, brick by brick?
Yeah, so it's been kind of crazy since the acquisition of SINFIT. We've almost been taking it kind of day by day, just trying to catch up on inventory, because we put all these forecasts together based on what they've done in the past, and we have blown those forecasts out the water. So it's like we actually started off with a 3,000 square foot warehouse that we got, and within 2 months we outgrew it. It was like all of a sudden we're having to get more product, and of course we're having to order bigger because, as manufacturing is a little slower right now because of regulations and stuff on with COVID happening. And so we've had to really increase our order volume and things like that. But we are planning for the future. That's one thing good about, like, with my VP of sales, Harold Vaca. He's really good about, one of his favorite things is analytics. And so he's always looking at that future. He's looking at forecasting. He's forecasting a year out, 2 years. How do I see this growing? How do I see, when he talks to Europa, it's not your typical like sales call, even though he's doing sales. It's more of a, what can we do for the next 3 years to make SINFIT the biggest NU? Oh, and by the way, we have Secret Javas and Hakuna. We want you guys to start distributing that as well. So we are looking, I mean, where we see the company in 5 years, I mean, our goal would be to be, one of the top 2 or 3 functional food companies out there. We've got we're really putting a lot of our resources behind SINFIT and the growth of it, because we just see so much and we're not afraid to try new things. Like like our new bars, we are already, they're such a hit. We've been getting a lot of requests from people. We were getting these requests from our old bars. Hey, can you guys do a plant-based bar? So I just approved the flavoring on our plant-based bars. So those are going to be going into production soon. We've got we're going to do some vegan spreads. So we've got some spreads that are going to be vegan and also plant-based. So we're really kind of seeing where we can take everything. The vegan market is huge right now in Colorado, and I think Austin and Colorado have some similarities, but like the vegan market, I can't believe how many of my friends I used to eat steaks with that are like, no, I got a tofu steak, and I'm like, what the heck is that, man? Like, I don't even, how do you eat that thing, And but nothing, I love the vegans too. I mean, we're just the idea is that we can roll and go with the punches. And believe it or not, I watch a lot of what you say on a lot of your forecasting stuff, because you do. I mean, you've done a great job of 2 years ago saying something about a company, and then 2 years later, man, and it's like it happened. So I watch a lot of what you do and what you say and say, okay, well, I can definitely see that Josh, because you do your research. You're not that guy that's just out there. You don't have a podcast and a show that you're just saying, oh yeah, this is probably going to happen, and you're just like throwing it out there hoping to get followers. You're actually saying stuff that you've researched and done. And so I follow a lot of that just to see and say, okay, Josh is saying that this is probably going to be a big push. We should probably start looking into this now.
Well, I appreciate that, because I mean, I put a lot of work into it. I think I've always said they're only going to judge you off the last thing you say. So I have to consistently make sure that I don't say predicting, but trying my best to see around the corner and kind of look at all the indicators, look at all the data that's available, pay attention, like really at a granular level, like how are consumers interacting and behaving. And it goes down to the psychology of all that, and you have to really try to figure out how does that apply to the spaces that you care most about. And it just so happens that I kind of fell in love with functional CPG over a lot of other things that I could have been probably doing these same things. One thing that I take a lot of pride in is trying my best to provide value to the industry that's done a lot of great things for me. It's my way of, in a sense, giving back, and hopefully, regardless if somebody ever says thank you or not on the other side of those videos, as long as I know that people are getting some value from it and enjoying it, then it's fulfilling to me. And hopefully people apply that and make millions of dollars in their business. And I just enjoy giving more than getting in return, kind of keep the ethos of leave the place better than where you started. So, I came into the industry and I saw it a certain way. And I want, whenever I'm done, to look back and say, I left it better. I was a small, little, tiny fraction of making it better, but I feel like at least I was doing my day-to-day to actually, make it better.
Absolutely. And I definitely see that. And that's what I tell my kids. I mean, my kids who, it's kind of funny because they, have to come to the office with me every day because of the whole, remote learning. And I set them up I bought cubicles and set them up cubicles out there. And I said, but the really big thing for me, I told my kids is like, one, I want you guys to see, what it takes to be an entrepreneur if you ever want to own your own business, see the work it takes, see that, dad's wearing a hat and a t-shirt because he's out there packing boxes still, even though he is the CEO, he's out there packing boxes because he knows he needs to get a big order out to True North or Europa. But also that, I can tell my kids, it's more of a legacy type thing. Like I want to leave you guys with a legacy. If it's something you guys are really in, like my oldest son is super into health and wellness and learning. And so I'm like, if there's anything I can teach you and leave you with this, I really want that to happen. But also these people that I hire and bring in, I want to teach them the industry and teach them, I look back at some of the people that I first brought into the industry or that worked for me initially, and I see some of these guys that, they made millions on their own company, or they're just like top level sales executives somewhere or marketing, whatever they're doing. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, I just love the fact that even if I, like you said, played a little part, which is why, like, I volunteered as a football coach for 16 years. Why did I do that? It's great when you have these kids in college and they're calling you back and they still call you coach every time you see them. And it's like, coach, man, if you want to push me like that, I don't know that if I would have been where I was, or if you would have given me those tips. It just feels good just knowing that you're leaving a little bit of an impact on people's lives. But, that was one of the coolest things is for me to, and I was telling my kids, because I was telling them that I was going to be doing this with you. And I was like, it's really cool because I remember Josh when he was so young. And, I mean, I'm 44. I don't know how old you are now, but, I'm like, he literally was like a little pup when he came in, not too long out of college. And I was like, it's cool to see him, kind of progress into this, doing these cool podcasts and having all these big business owners like respecting you and looking to you for some of the things you say. Because I see the comments, from people like Richard White from, Sportica, and, the guy from NutriBio, and, Mark Lobliner, and those guys really respect what you say. And it's cool. I think it's cool just to, now I'm not saying I had a part in that, maybe just a little bit from hiring you or bringing you into MusclePharm, but it's cool to see that kind of stuff. It really, really kind of makes you feel good to say that. And, so now my older son's been watching your podcasts and stuff and listening because he wants to learn. He's like, I just want to learn. I was like, you got to read it, read the earnings reports, read all that stuff that he's doing.
So when he's napping in the middle of the day, what happened? He started listening to some of my podcasts that he's like just dozed off.
Absolutely. No, he's funny because he's like, he looks like me. Everybody calls him my mini me because he really does look just like me, except for he's ripped and has a six pack and all this stuff. But other than that, he's very, I always say he's very black and white. There's no in between with him. I remember when you first came in, you were very, I want to say similar to that, very black and white. And, it was all about what you could see, and that's how he is. And so it's funny because I think he relates to some of your stuff because, you could tell him 2 + 2 is 4, but he wants to see it on the paper. Yeah. And he's been like that since he was like a little guy. He was a gymnast, and, he struggled sometimes because he wanted to know every single thing that could go on within a trick that he was learning before he actually did the trick. And so I think he actually enjoys a lot of the stuff because he really wants to know business. I mean, he sits in my office a lot during the day sometimes, and he'll come and just listen to me on phone calls, and he's just like, so Dad, what was this and what was that, and so those are the things we want to leave, in our legacy. For me, that's my kids, and anybody else I can help and bring in. I hope one day that SINFIT can be, what MusclePharm was when we were there, and have all these people in and bringing these people in. And I'd love to see that tree where people are like, where'd you come from? Oh, I came from SINFIT. I mean, that would be the ultimate for me to see that when I'm 60 and I'm, an old fart sitting on the chair, on my porch. Just, it's great though, man. It's awesome that we get to do this too. I told my kids, I was like, this is really exciting. I do some of these interviews for the public company side, and I'm like, this one I'm really excited about because it's really like doing it with a buddy, just kind of hanging out and chatting. So it's really cool for me.
No, this is a lot of fun. I appreciated catching up, and I just want to thank you for your time. I know busy guy running a few companies, but you took some time out of your day to talk to me and share some value to the community. So I just want to thank you again, Leonard.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited about this.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.